I've been feeling very much overwhelmed by the occurrence of everything.
Either them not understanding, them not being angry enough, in my opinion. It's been a lot. It's stressful.
Yeah.
Then I think the next thing it was driving me and inspiring me to get more educated.
So, without further ado, my family.
So I feel like I've learned a lot, to be honest with you, but one of the things that I feel like I've learned that as a parent, I think I may not have done you girls justice in teaching you about the importance of our culture and our history, right? I think we lived it. I don't think we downplayed it or anything, but I don't think I really talked to you guys or prepared you all about racism and what that looks like and how that impacts our lives, right? Because we were at the stage where nobody saw color, which is a lie, but that's what we told, right? And so we lived that way. I wish I would have done it differently, but I am enjoying watching you all learn who you are in the culture and watching you all figure that out of how I can make things change or how I can have an impact on it, because I think you guys are going to be probably the answer to help us move past this, and to break this change, because something has to change. So that's one of the things that I've learned about myself. It's like I wish we would have done some things differently. And then the other thing is the conversations about having the Martin Luther King and the Malcolm X personalities to help us lead the charge and the change, right? Because you have that group that says Malcolm X was the way and he had it right, and another say no, we got to be peaceful about it. I think we need both, and we need the peacefulness, but we need the people that's going to go out there and then say I'm going to loot and I'm going to riot. I know we're not supposed to support that, so they say.
You support whatever you want to support. But just a little side, what's that little extra like subsection, a sub note. Which of your children would you say is more Malcolm X or more Martin Luther King? I'm sorry, Dr. Martin Luther King. Like, is it 50-50? Is one more Malcolm X?
That is
one
so
more?
Funny. And that's a great question.
Just putting you on the spot. What
you are putting me on the spot right there. There was a time where I probably would have said that Nicole was our Martin Luther King-esque, and that the two of you were my Malcolm X's. Proud to people all the time. What I've learned is over this situation that we're facing and impacting, that Nicole is as much as a Malcolm X as she is Martin Luther King, right? But again, I think you need both, and there's a place for us to be peaceful. There's a place for us to pray. There's a place for us to come and talk and reason together. That's what the Bible tells us to do. But then there's also the place where we got to get up and we got to move. We got to have a plan. We have to put some things into action, because we can't just keep sitting talking and saying that it's the white people, it's the white people. No, it is the white people, but what are we going to do as a culture, as a nation, as a race to change it?
Deanna, what I gathered from that is we're still...
She didn't
say that she saw a drop of the Dr. Ennis. We're still rowdy, black power. Come for us if you want to, but we got answers. But what about you guys? What you want?
I feel like the deep dive is real. And as you look through information, through people's comments, and I feel like I have to fact check people's comments, so now I'm looking up and finding more information. So I think just even understanding, like I said a little earlier, of systemic racism and the things that were put into place, like redlining and making school budgets based off of the property values of the communities. So of course, if you have an affluent neighborhood, they're going to get more resources because their property values are higher, versus
a neighborhood that's even in middle class or poverty, they're not going to get as many resources because the property value.
One thing I learned from a TikToker, a rapper, he was sharing about how a lot of times we get upset with the presidents and the governors and mayors, for that matter, and them not making certain changes that we want to see, when really we need to look to the legislative branch of our government. And those are our congressmen and our senators, the people who are actually making laws and voting on these laws, and hold them accountable, and making sure that we're a little bit more knowledgeable about who we're voting for, and vote for these people, to make sure that our neighborhoods receive the source and the funding that they need to have, because we can't just rest it at the foot of the president or our governor. So learning more about that.
Yeah, and that is definitely important. I want to point out racism and racist. I feel like that is one of those hot button words, also known as trigger words, which is surprisingly not triggering to the people who receive racism like it's a packaged gift. It triggers to the people who are usually accused of being racist based on the color of their skins. And I just want to preference that by racism and racists are people who delve in hate based on the perceived notion of someone else. If you, and skin color, yes, but if you don't hate someone, if you don't make those snap judgments and those decisions on someone based on the color of their skin and what you think you have learned by the news, check yourself. Are you a racist? Probably not. So why are you getting offended when someone else is talking about racism? I don't like when people say racism doesn't exist in America anymore. It's 2020. First of all, you've probably never experienced racism. You probably will never experience racism because you are white. You cannot say that it doesn't exist if you have never going to have the opportunity to receive it. It happens. That's why the KKK is there. You're right. You can definitely experience prejudice, but you can't say racism doesn't exist when the KKK is still hosting weekly events, and they straight up that, and then they come out and then they present themselves.
Peacefully protest.
They wear everything.
I think that's what's the great thing about another thing, that why the outcry is more now. We're more connected.
Yeah.
So through Twitter, through Instagram, through TikTok, we have more access to technology. So we're recording these things now. We're capturing what people are saying, and it's there. That's your thumbprint. Even if when you delete it, somebody has called it and put it up. So now you have more people calling out what people say is racist. Yeah. And I think part of the reason why they get so uproar, because I think racism is linked a little bit to whiteness. So, and when I say a little bit, I mean a lot. So right. So like when it's almost like they have a crisis of conscience, like of self, because okay, racism is linked to being white. I'm white. Does that mean I'm a racist because you called what's going on racism? And so what you need, and I think it's important to say that, okay, if you're upset, that means, like you said, Jay, you got to take an internal inventory, because you're having a crisis of self right now. And so what have you done? What are you doing actively against racism? And that's the thing, like we said earlier, the line has been drawn. You are no longer just racist or not racist. No, you're racist or you're anti-racist. And if you're not standing up against the racism that is happening around you, if you're seeing it somewhere, then that's the problem, and that's your crisis of conscience, and you need to act upon it to show it.
So, look, it just left. I shouldn't have explained it. But I was thinking, comparatively, like how I know a lot of black people probably have done this, because I know I have. Or let me just speak from my point of view. I check myself because I know I'm black. I live this every day. Wake up black. Go to sleep black. That's what happens. So when I walk into a space and I see that I am the only black person, let's say for a lovely job interview that happens, and I just see people that I do have prejudice sometimes, and I'm just like, they're not gonna like me just because I'm black. But I walk into that place and I make sure that I speak in full sentences. I put the G at the end of ing. I don't put that apostrophe. I say the full word. I make sure that I smile more than I feel like doing, because unfortunately I have one of those faces that do not, if I'm not thinking about it, I'm not smiling. Like, if I'm just, there's a term for it and I don't curse. But my face does not normally formulate a smile. So that's why, yes, I get one of those people that walk past down the street and like, smile, everything's okay. And I'm just like, I know. But I turn up, like, I try to break down those barriers of what I know people perceive black people to be. Uneducated, ghetto, and rude. And so I have to inwardly think about what I'm presenting, and then, you know, before I go to any situation, but mainly when I'm the only black person. And I feel like white people, join the club, start doing it. Take a minute and assess who you are. Assess how you're going to be perceived. Tone it down a little bit. Cause you don't need to tone it up. Tone it down. Because unfortunately, you live in that privileged world of wherever you go, most likely it's going to be majority you. And so you don't have to think about that. There's usually going to be somebody who aligns with your exact same storyline of how you grew up, or your exact same way of thinking, or just how you present yourself. So come back and just think, how am I acting? What do I usually say? It probably won't be appropriate. It may not be appropriate. You know, it is appropriate because I'm a decent human being. But start thinking like that, because a lot of black people do. And I feel like a lot of white people don't. And that's why they're like, there's no racism. It's because you don't see it. You're not analyzing. You have to start inwardly thinking. Am I being racist right now?
But that's because that's how, as African Americans, we've been trained.
Yeah, you know, because there's a lot of stereotypes.
We've always been told we have to do twice as much to be half as good. Mm-hmm. So we always have to do more than. We have to go beyond. We have to make our initial presentation well, right? One of the things that I hate the absolute worst is when I hear somebody say, oh, she's so articulate. Mm-hmm. For what? Mm-hmm. Right? You know, because she's a black person and she's articulate, or, oh, she's well put together. Or for me, it was when I was in the arena of working and I was the only African American in the office, it was, oh, from a young lady who was born and raised in Washington, D.C., Southeast Side. Oh, she's pretty nice. She knows what she's doing. Yes, I do. But that is how we have to do it. And so they tend to have that privilege, and because they've lived in that privilege, they don't think differently of it, right? It doesn't impact them. So what do? We have to teach them. Yeah. But they don't, if they're willing to learn. And I think those situations that we've had with what they call them Karens in life right now, whatever names they have, and they pick up the phone and they think they can.
And or Becky.
Right, and Becky, they think they can pick up the phone and say, I'm going to call the police and tell them this and that and the other, because the stereotype is already there. Mm-hmm. That's why they can pick that phone up and feel confident in the fact that the police are going to respond to them, and that you, black person, are going to suffer the consequences because me, white privileged person, has put a call out there to you, and they're going to believe me over you.
Straight validation on their point.